Members of the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine shared a video showing the liquidation of 7 Russian invaders near Bakhmut. The press service of the Special Operations Forces published the corresponding video on Telegram, and Ukrinform reports. During reconnaissance in the Bakhmut direction, soldiers of the Special Operations Forces noticed the movement of Russian invaders and successfully tracked them down. As a result, at least 7 invaders were killed, including a machine gunner, a radio operator, an observer with a night vision device, and an assault team. Having suffered losses, the enemy retreated. Previously, over the past week, units of the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces eliminated or neutralized more than 300 invaders during the fighting on the outskirts of Bakhmut. In the course of fierce street battles with small groups of the enemy on the outskirts of Bakhmut this week, units of the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces eliminated or neutralized about 320 invaders, said Colonel Mykola Urshilovich, a representative of the main department of the National Police of Ukraine. The press service of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine posted on Facebook. According to him, the enemy continues to go on the offensive and assault the National Guard positions despite the heavy manpower losses. The enemy, trying to wear our units out, withdraws after an unsuccessful attack, regroups, and starts assaulting our positions again and again. Our units daily come under 25 to 30 artillery strikes and repel up to 20 assaults on their positions in certain directions, Urshilovich emphasized. In the area of Spern, the enemy, supporting the offensive actions of its forces, used artillery and launched airstrikes on the positions of the Ivan Bohun 14th Operational Brigade. The National Guard soldiers inflicted significant losses on the enemy and thwarted his advance. In total, about Russian 15 servicemen were decimated in a week. Colonel Urshilovich separately praised the personnel of the Hetman Petro Doroshenko 1st Presidential Operational Brigade who restrained the assaults of mercenaries of Russian private military companies in the area of Bilohorivka. The brigade annihilated about 20 invaders. Meanwhile, Russian troops changed tactics in Donetsk's direction and reduced the number of night attacks. The enemy somewhat changed its tactics in this direction and stopped attacking our positions at night. Over the past 2 days, the number of assaults in this direction varies from 3 to 4. Instead, during the day, the enemy uses artillery very powerfully. Yesterday, the invaders used artillery 223 times in Donetsk's direction, and there were 16 assaults in the area of Volodar and Marinka. Oleksiy Dmytrashkivsky, the head of the Joint Press Center of the Defense Forces of Tavria area, said during the nationwide news telethon. He added that the enemy is also using aviation actively. In general, all attacks were repelled yesterday and at night. No enemy advance is observed there, he said. According to Dmytrashkivsky, if earlier the enemy constantly opened fire and sent reconnaissance, sabotage, and assault groups, now the enemy is recovering at night, replenishing its reserves. At the same time, he believes that the enemy will continue offensive attempts. Yesterday, a border guard combat intelligence patrol raided the positions of the Russian occupation forces near Bakhmut. On the battlefield in Ukraine, the area closest to enemy territory is known as the Zero Line. Members of the 71st Separate Jaeger Brigade of the Air Assault Troops of the Armed Forces of Ukraine eliminated Russian invaders near Bakhmut in the Donetsk region. Unmanned aerial vehicles of the 71st Separate Jaeger Brigade of the Air Assault Troops of the Armed Forces of Ukraine noticed a concentration of enemy manpower in the Bakhmut area. The coordinates were instantly sent to the brigade mortar battery and the Krab self-propelled howitzer crew. The explosions of 155mm shells drove the occupiers into a plantation where they were already waited for by our mortars, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine posted on Telegram, publishing a corresponding video. Later, the plantation was mopped up by assault units of the paratroopers. Ukrainian and Russian forces appear to be locked in fierce battles as Russia has intensified attacks in southern Ukraine in addition to its offensive in the east. In the area south of Bakhmut, fierce battles between the settlement Kleshchivka and Ivanovskoye with the gradual advance of the Wagner in the direction of the specified village. Its capture will mean the operational encirclement of the Bakhmut garrison, says Strelkov. In the event of occupation by Russian forces, Ivanovka, and subsequent consolidation here, the assault on Bakhmut itself may also begin due to the lack of fortifications in this direction. The armed forces of Ukraine will lose the initiative to defend themselves, although large forces of the Ukrainian army and foreign mercenaries are still present in the city. Ukrainian soldiers defending the front lines in the Donbass described the fighting as reminiscent of the First World War. Vladimir Putin's army is recklessly sending its troops to the slaughter in Ukraine as it desperately attempts to make military gains on the battlefield. Fighting has been particularly fierce in the country's eastern Donbass region, where Russian forces recently captured Soledar after weeks of relentless attacks. The Kremlin now hopes that its army can press on and seize Bakhmut as it tries to maintain its offensive momentum. However, Russia's gains have come at a huge cost, with hundreds of its troops being slaughtered in the process. Ukrainian soldiers defending the front lines in the Donbass described the fighting as reminiscent of the First World War. They said Russian commanders appeared to have scant regard for the lives of their men, sending wave upon wave of poorly armed infantry to try and storm fortified Ukrainian positions. Meanwhile, in an address to the Munich Security Conference on Friday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said there was no alternative to getting rid of Russian aggression once and for all. Ukraine's military intelligence has said that Moscow intends to occupy all of the Donbass region, comprising the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, by March.